I turned 18, and I hoped that this day would be special, and my girlfriend Steph kind of hinted that it would be. At the time, we were both still in school, even in the same class, although Steph was 4 months older than me. We had been together for the entire last year of school. Both of us were among the best students and hoped to pass our exams and get into a good university. The same university, if it were up to us, because even at that young age, we saw our future together. Steph was a beautiful girl in a class full of beautiful girls. Her breasts weren't as big as some of the others, but her legs were probably longer and slimmer than most. Some of her classmates had earned themselves a certain reputation, some more, some less. But my Steph, as much as I wished things were different, was a virgin and often reminded me that she intended to remain so until the right moment came along. Okay, we fooled around like all young couples do, and I knew what her breasts felt like, even though I'd never seen them in person. And then, no way. So I remained a virgin, a rapidly disappearing species among my friends, and I had no particular desire to be the only one preventing that species from declaring itself extinct. That's why I was looking forward to this evening so much, doubting that I would be able to achieve my goal, but definitely hoping for progress in our relationship. Would this night be the right moment? It was young love, but at the time it felt so real that my stomach hurt when we had to say goodnight, the kind of love you dream about when you should be concentrating on what the teacher is saying. Yes, I was crazy about her, and she was crazy about me. We started the evening by going to one of the popular pubs in town. I had been there before, but now, at 18, I was there legally for the first time. "A pint of bombardier and a gin and lemon, please," I ordered, confident in my new status, ordering drinks at a bar for the first time in my life. "How old are you, son?" the bartender asked, undermining my confidence. 18, I replied. "It's my birthday today." "You don't look it," the bartender said, upsetting me even more. "Do you have ID?" "I don't need ID," I replied. "I'm 18. "Sorry, kid, but I can't take the risk," he continued. "You don't look 18, so no alcohol without ID." "But I don't have any ID," I told him. I didn't know I needed it. "The signs are pretty clear, kid," he said, pointing to the sign above the bar, which clearly stated in a few short sentences that I simply would not be served. "Don't you have a driver's license?" "Yes, but I don't have it with me," I sighed. "I don't have a car." "Sorry, I can't help you," he concluded our conversation, and I was effectively escorted out of the establishment. Ashamed, I made my way back through the crowd of patrons, convinced that everyone had heard this disaster and was laughing at me. What a terrible start to my birthday. Maybe Steph has something, at least a driver's license, I thought as I returned to where I had left her. I didn't really want to ask my girlfriend to go buy us drinks, but it seemed like there was no other option. "What have you done?" was her reaction when I explained what had happened. "You asked me out on a date, and now you want me to go buy drinks?" "I'll pay," I muttered plaintively. "Just go and buy them." She was no happier than I was, but tossing back her long blonde hair, she handed me her jacket and started making her way through the crowd toward the bar. And my heart skipped a beat when she stopped at least twice to chat with a group of guys she apparently knew. Her giggle when one of them playfully slapped her on the butt as she walked away didn't improve my mood. "Here, take this, Ken," Steph finally returned, handing me a glass of something that was clearly not the beer I had been waiting for. "What's this?" I asked, noticing that she had taken the gin and lemon she had wanted for herself. "Orange soda." "He wouldn't give me alcohol because you're here," Steph muttered. "He probably saw you with me and refused." "Did you show him your license?" "He didn't ask," she replied. And oh my God, I felt like a nobody. I wanted to leave, but she didn't want to, saying she liked the sophisticated atmosphere. Of course, that wasn't true. But for two 18-year-olds embarking on a big adventure, at that moment it really seemed that way. Steph was thrilled, looking around, pointing out strange people she knew, and sometimes people we knew, all of whom were older than me, which didn't help my already shaky self-esteem. I wanted to leave, or maybe crawl into a corner, especially when I realized I was clutching a second bottle of Orangina. I was about to insist that we go somewhere else, or better yet, move on to the next part of our planned evening, when the date that promised to be so wonderful took a sharp turn for the worse. "Hey, Ken," someone said behind me. "Who you with?" Oh, shit. "Hey, Lenny," I said to my former neighbor. He was 5 years older than me, 3 inches taller, and much broader in the shoulders, and until recently he had been my neighbor. The same guy who used to bully me when we were younger, although, to be fair, he had recently chased away a couple of local bullies who were picking on me. "This is my girlfriend, Steph," I introduced him. "You've probably seen her at my place." "You mean this cutie in her school uniform?" He grinned, addressing her directly. "You mean this young beauty still goes to school? Are they allowed to wear such short skirts to school?" I reluctantly agreed. Steph fluttered her long eyelashes and smiled coyly, and Lenny squeezed past me and sat down next to her. "So what are you doing with a nerd like Ken?" he asked her, laughing and nudging me in the shoulder as if in jest, though I didn't think it was funny. "He's turning 18 today," my friend informed him. "I'm a little older than him, of course, but—" She didn't finish, shrugging as if that said it all. "I'm Lenny," he introduced himself, since I deliberately didn't do so, hoping he would get the hint and leave us alone. "I know," Steph surprised me. "Lenny Jones. You dated my cousin Georgina Flowers." "God, that was 6 or 7 years ago," he replied, turning away from me and focusing on her. "You're not telling me you're the skinny girl we used to look after?" "Yes, that was me," she admitted, smiling broadly. "My goodness, you've grown," Lenny continued, leaning back so he could look her up and down. "You didn't have legs like that back then." "I didn't have much back then," she squeaked in a girlish voice, leaning against the wall behind her and pushing her small but firm and pointed breasts toward him, either accidentally or on purpose. "You used to put me on your lap and tickle me." "And you squealed like a crazy woman," he reminded her, laughing at the memory, "but you always came back for more." "I was in love with you, Lenny," she confessed, blushing to her ears. "I dreamed that when I grew up, I would be your girlfriend." "Well, you sure grew up, girl," Lenny replied, almost growling, looking her over again. "Steve and I were just leaving," I interjected, highly annoyed by the direction the conversation was taking. "Oh, don't go yet," he replied, still not turning to me. "Let me buy you another drink." "I don't think so." "Thanks," Steve interrupted me. "I'll have a gin and lemon, please, Lenny." "Bring it over, Ken." "Here's 20, Lenny interjected, pulling money out of his pocket and handing it to me. "A double gin and lemon for this lovely young lady, a pint of Directors for me, and whatever you want for yourself." "They won't serve him," Steph smirked, further compounding my embarrassment. "They don't believe he's 18 and won't serve him." "Hell, they won't serve him," he said, at least looking sympathetic. "Tell Joe at the bar you're with Lenny and you'll be fine." My, admittedly unconvincing, objections were ignored, and I found myself away from them, heading for the bar, though I was somewhat consoled by the prospect of finally having a beer instead of the nauseating non-alcoholic drink I had been forced to settle for until now. Of course, when I got there were a lot more people than before, and it seemed like it would take forever to get served, and the 3 bartenders seemed to look right through me when I tried to get their attention. But finally. "Double gin and lemon and 2 pints of Directors, please." "Didn't the manager kick you out earlier?" asked the new bartender, who was probably not much older than me. "Lenny told me to say I was with him," I stammered, suddenly feeling like a pathetic errand boy trying to do a grown man's job. "You mean Lenny Jones?" "Yes," I replied. "He's over there, by the back wall." "Is that the one hugging the blonde?" he asked, looking over the heads of the people standing at the bar. "I've never seen him with her before." "That's him," I croaked, wondering if I should run back and tell him where to stick his damn drinks. "Okay, buddy," The bartender returned a few seconds later. "1 double gin and lemon and 1 pint. What's for you?" "A pint," I replied, confused. "I ordered 2 pints." "Sorry, I can't," he replied with a sympathetic smile. "The boss won't let me." "Then a half pint?" I tried, but he just shook his head. "Then a damn Coke," I gave in, unable to drink another damn Orangina. He poured me a drink, I paid him, and left a ridiculously large tip simply because I was angry. It wasn't my money. I couldn't find it. It wasn't where I left it. My heart sank, fearing the worst. That damn Lenny had stolen my girlfriend. "Over here, Ken," I said with relief when I spotted them just a few feet away, apparently having found a free table. But my relief turned to disappointment when I discovered that Lenny had taken the seat on the bench next to Steph, and I had to sit on a stool across from them. "Didn't get a beer, Ken?" Lenny asked me, but at least he didn't giggle like Steph did when I explained what had happened. The next hour was a nightmare. I sat there, fidgeting with my fingers, while the two of them got closer, reminiscing about old times. But mostly Steph just sat there beaming while Lenny told her about his new, well-paying job as an assistant manager, his new apartment, his new BMW, and how he had recently scored 3 goals for his soccer team. All the while, I was getting angrier and angrier, and they were getting closer and closer, his arm around her shoulders, his fingertips uncomfortably close to the top of her cleavage. Cleavage? When the hell did she unbutton those 2 extra buttons? I managed to get a few words in, and they both listened politely. But when I finished, they went back to their conversation, not even acknowledging what I had said. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Okay, I'm leaving, Steph," I announced, standing up. "Are you coming with me or not?" She interrupted what she was saying to him and looked at me uncertainly. "Where?" she finally asked. "I'm fine here." "I'm not," I replied sharply, probably too loudly. "Damn, what a birthday this has been. I'm leaving." "Oh, Ken," she whispered breathlessly, putting her hand to her mouth. "I'm sorry I got so carried away. I completely forgot." "Well?" I asked, and Steph looked first at me, then at him, clearly not knowing what to do, the damn bitch, obviously weighing the pros and cons of leaving me there for the whole evening. "God, Ken," Lenny chimed in to break the silence. "It's your 18th birthday, and you haven't had a drink yet, have you?" "Thanks for noticing," I replied sarcastically. "Then we need to fix that, don't we?" he said to us, finishing his last glass of beer and pulling Steph closer to him. "Let's find a place where Ken can have a proper drink." "Great," added Steph, emptying her glass, drinking what seemed to me like more than she had ever drunk in her entire life. "Lead the way, Lenny." I found myself following them out of the pub, Lenny leading my girlfriend through the crowd, his arm around her waist, trying to ignore the fact that he couldn't seem to figure out where her waist ended, and her round ass in a miniskirt began. "You got your license, right?" Lenny asked when we got to the parking lot. "Yes, but I've never," was all I managed to say to explain that I had never driven anything like his BMW before. "Come on, you drive," he ordered, handing me the keys. "I've had a couple of drinks and you haven't, so you're better off." "But I've never—" "Put the key in the ignition, press the clutch, and press the button," he instructed me. And I have to admit that the prospect of driving a powerful BMW influenced my decision. Not that I wasn't still angry, but we were going somewhere where I could drink, and in the meantime, I could drive a BMW. For real. I followed his instructions, and in a few moments I was on the road, following Lenny's directions to turn left. It was a little different from the Ford Fiesta I had learned to drive in, which was the last car I had been behind the wheel of. It wasn't until I carefully shifted into second gear that I realized Lenny had gotten into the back seat next to my girlfriend. "Drive straight ahead and turn right at the church," he instructed me, and I, in my innocence, followed his directions. "Drive straight for 3 miles and watch the road, Ken," he said as I nervously but successfully navigated the large car through the intersection at the church. If Steph hadn't giggled, I probably wouldn't have noticed anything, but she giggled. "Watch the road, huh?" I couldn't look back, but I could and did adjust the rearview mirror, only to nearly crash into a parked car when my eyes refocused on the road. Damn. My girlfriend was in Lenny's arms, their lips were locked, one of his hands was around her back, and the other was playing with the buttons on her blouse. That is, the few that were still buttoned. Damn it, Steph, my girlfriend was letting that bastard grope her. God. It took me 6 months to study her body that closely, and this was all I got. "Careful, Ken," Lenny shouted from the back, feeling the car skid. "Where are we going?" I asked plaintively, hoping it wasn't far and they would stop before going too far. "Turn at the 3rd traffic light." "There's no pub here," I pointed out the obvious, seeing that we had stopped on a typical suburban street. "We're at my new house, Ken," they informed me. "These days, no pub will serve you without ID, but I've got beer in the fridge." "Listen, Lenny," I started to persuade them to leave, but the words stuck in my throat when I turned to them in the back seat. "It's coming undone in the front, Lenny," my girlfriend whispered as he tried unsuccessfully to unfasten the clasp. "Here, take this, Ken," he shouted, tossing me Steph's bra, which he had managed to remove. "Stop it, damn it!" I shouted at both of them. "He's right, Steve," Lenny agreed, much to my relief, though it didn't last long. "Come on, you two, let's go to my place and have a beer," he continued, grabbing Steve's arm and pulling her out of the car. "Stop it," she shouted, resisting him as he tried to pull her out of the car. "Where's my blouse and my things?" "What do you need them for?" He laughed, tugging at her arm. "I can't go to your place with my breasts exposed," she protested. "Why not? Someone might see." "So what? They're beautiful." "But I can't." "Oh, yes, you can." He grinned, pulling the giggling Steph out of the car, wrapping his arms around her waist and leading her to his apartment a few houses down. "Oh, screw it!" She laughed loudly while I sat in the car in amazement and complete rage at the world. I don't know what would have happened. They probably thought I would just follow them. But I didn't. I just sat there for a good 10 minutes after they disappeared through his door, wondering whether to get out of the car and drive home. Then I had a better idea. A much better idea. Key in the ignition, foot on the clutch, and I pressed that damn button again. Moments later, I was driving Larry's very expensive new and very bright BMW through traffic, heading to the other side of town, to the park where I knew a group of my classmates were gathering. Wow, they're going to be thrilled. Only when I arrived did I realize that not only my friends would be there, but also several girls from our school, as well as a few girls I didn't know. Only when I arrived and they, especially the girls, noticed that it was me getting out of the driver's seat did I fully realize the magnetic pull of flashy cars. "Is that your car?" asked the blonde, separating herself from the group that was standing and suspiciously eyeing the car I had just pulled up in. "Hi, Ken!" exclaimed Lindsay Martin, one of the most popular girls with the looks to match, pushing the blonde aside and coming up to me. "Cool car, Ken," giggled Jane Stevens, the torpedo tits of our class, who had never paid any attention to me before, but now seemed to be trying to squeeze into our group. "Can I sit in it? Can you give me a ride home, Ken? Is that your car? What are you doing later, Ken? Want to be my tennis partner, Ken?" Questions rained down on me like a cornucopia from the prettiest girls in the neighborhood, and I stood there saying nothing, just smiling and shrugging at the right moments. Damn, I was so cool! And then I saw her. Mary Hubbard. Mary Hubbard smiled meaningfully at me, knowing that the other girls didn't stand a chance if she decided she wanted me. Damn, Mary Hubbard, queen of the senior class, with the longest legs, a smile that could make you drunk, an ass you could die for, and a reputation as the biggest slut in the class. The girl, I mean, for the chosen few, which, according to rumors, included the new young math teacher. I didn't play rugby, cricket, or even tennis like her chosen ones. But I had a new BMW 7 Series with cool rims and all the bells and whistles, and they didn't. Easy. Mary, I called her, waving my finger. Want a ride? Sure, Ken. She giggled, pushing away the less fortunate mortals with her elbows, jumping up and walking over to me. I don't mind going with you, Ken. I'm sure those were the first words she had spoken to me since I bumped into her in the hallway when we were about 12, and back then they hadn't been particularly polite. Mary settled into the passenger seat, and I felt a sly pleasure in helping her fasten her seatbelt. We set off, Mary looking like the Queen of Sheba, and I trying not to smile as we left behind the proletariat, who were casting envious or hateful glances at us, depending on their gender. Where do you want to go? I asked, trying to look cool but struggling to take my eyes off her already very short skirt, which was riding up. How about the playground, Ken? Mary replied with a sly smile. I nodded, unable to make my vocal cords work. Everyone, including the dogs, knew what a trip to the playground meant at that time of day. You're kidding, Ken, Mary croaked about an hour later, trying to revive the poor, exhausted creature. You really were a virgin? Absolutely, Mary, I confirmed, enjoying the sight of the most beautiful girl in our class. You're my first. I've never had sex before. I can't believe it, she smiled at me. It seemed I had made a strong impression on the lovely Miss Hubbard, and when I drove her home early the next morning, she raved about what a wonderful time she had had and how she was going to keep my abilities a secret and save them just for her. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, Mary was as talkative as she was busty, and within a few days, all the girls at school knew about my new talent, and a significant number of them decided they wanted to try it. Mary, bless her, was fair. As long as I left her one night and Sunday and a few more nights for homework, I had enough time to work through the list of takers. It was hard sometimes, but someone had to do it. I'm telling you about sex, and you're probably all wondering what happened to the car, right? Well, after I dropped Mary off on the first night, I went back and left the car at Lenny's house, thinking he wouldn't even notice it was gone. Then I dropped the keys in his mailbox. I wanted to throw them away, but I didn't want to risk being accused of theft, and after Mary, I somehow lost interest in Steph. But I miscalculated, didn't I? I threw the keys into what I believed was the door, but apparently they ended up in the mailbox of the house next door. It turned out that the BMW didn't belong to Lenny after all, but to his boss, who had borrowed it to pick up an important client from the airport very early in the morning. When he drove Steph home, apparently not very happy that she didn't want to go with him all the way, he discovered that the car was gone, panicked, and called the police. They arrived about an hour later, but found that the missing car was where I had left it, in front of his house. First mistake? They weren't very happy. Of course, he didn't have the keys, so he called home and woke up my father, who angrily told him that it was my birthday, I hadn't come home yet, and he didn't know when I would be back. Second mistake. With no other option, he called his boss, as he had a meeting with clients in a couple of hours. His boss, of course, was not thrilled. Third mistake. The dissatisfied boss arrives with a spare key, opens the car, which by now smells like a brothel, and discovers Steph's bra and blouse, as well as a pile of suspicious liquid on the new upholstery. Fourth mistake, and the tally continues. As far as I understand, Lenny's career in junior management ended there. It's been 4 weeks, Ken, Steph complained when she finally cornered me during lunch. Can't we go back to the way we were? I'm not sure we can, Steph, I replied seriously. Why not? There's a whole list of reasons, Steph, I replied. Like what? See for yourself, I said, handing her my little red notebook, open to the right page. What's this, Ken? She asked, scanning the page in front of her. It's a list of reasons why we can't go back to the way we were, Steph. No, it's not, she protested. It's a list of women's names. Mary Hubbard, Fran Jameson, Lindsay Martin, Jane Stevens, Felicity Andrews. There must be 20 of them. 24, I corrected her. It's a list of candidates. Candidates? Yes, candidates who want to take me on a trial ride, so to speak. Then who is Miss Harris? She asked, her eyes filling with tears. The music teacher. I smiled at her. That was unexpected. You didn't do that, Steph sobbed. Is there a check mark next to her name? Yes, she replied, glaring at me. Draw your own conclusions. I smiled back at her. Here's a list of reasons why we can't go back to the way we were. But if you want, I can add your name at the end. She burst into tears and mumbled something unintelligible, but to be fair, I decided to add her name to the list just in case. I never finished the list because some of the candidates deserved a little more time. Then I went away to college for 3 years and started a new list. But I never got past 3 names, and there was no need to. Lenny? A few years later, I saw him at a local supermarket stocking shelves. Of course, it could have been someone who looked like him because he didn't respond to my greeting and seemed to have lost some of his former confidence. On the other hand, "Hi, weirdo" isn't the friendliest greeting, especially since, in the years since I last saw him, I had grown from a boy into a man and was probably bigger than him. Steph? I'm sorry, but we got married. I had fun while I was in college, and then we slept together. I discovered that she was still a virgin, if you know what I mean. But even so, I expected more passion and initiative from her, and it wasn't the special day she had promised me all those years ago. Steph was very unhappy when I dumped her, and in the end, we got married, but not to each other. Steph married our old school friend, and as far as I can tell, they're both pretty happy, although she still looks at me like a puppy every time I see her, no doubt wondering what might have been. And me? Well, Mary, you remember her. You promised me I'd have fun, and so far the prettiest young wife in the county is keeping her word, and I hope we'll live happily ever after.